Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really provocative document called Last Carta Magna. It lays out this whole theological framework for what's happening in the world right now, and we're going to break down exactly what it's arguing.
So the entire argument of this text really boils down to this one big question. The author is making a pretty wild claim that what looks like just another regional conflict is actually the spark for a massive global spiritual revolution. I mean, think about that.
Yeah, the author really doesn't pull any punches. Right from the start, this statement frames the conflict as something way bigger than a regional issue. We're talking about a historic catalyst, a moment so powerful it could literally reorder how the entire world thinks.
Okay, so this is the core thesis. The text is basically saying we're not just watching history unfold as usual. No, what we're seeing is what the author calls a divinely willed correction. The idea here is that humanity is being, guided back to a single original divine message.
All right, so to really get what the author is arguing, we need to look at this core analogy they use. It's how they explain the entire history of the Abrahamic faiths, and they frame it in a super modern way, almost like a tech company. And that brings us to this idea of progressive revelation. See, in this view, religion isn't a bunch of different competing ideas. It's more like a single program that's been evolving over time. Each prophet, according to the text, isn't starting something new, they're just delivering the next crucial update.
And here's how the author visualizes that whole rollout. Think about it. Adam delivers version 1.0. Then Abraham comes along with a major system upgrade. Moses and Jesus, they're like key patches and updates. And then the message of Muhammad is framed as the final corrected build of this divine software.
This is a really crucial distinction the author makes. The text argues that Islam was never supposed to be a new religion at all. Instead, it's presented as the definitive correction of that single, timeless message that came before it. So it's a confirmation, right? Not a total replacement. Okay, so this whole framework brings up a pretty obvious question, which the author dives right into. If the divine message is just a series of clean, sequential updates, then why on earth has there been so much conflict throughout history? Well, the text uses this really striking analogy of a football match to explain religious wars. The argument is that these conflicts are 100% man-made. They're driven by ego, fighting over what the author considers, trivial things. It's like players brawling over the ball and completely forgetting the whole point of the game. And this really lays out the core conflict the author is talking about. You've got the divine message on one side, which is presented as this free, unifying operating system for society. But then, on the other side, you've got human conflict, which is painted as a virus, something driven by ego and greed that just corrupts the whole system.
So the text takes this whole framework and applies it directly to the world we live in today. And let me tell you, it offers a pretty sharp critique of modern secular society.
The author then lays out what they see as the major failures of modern society. The argument is that by moving away from that divine software, we've created all these systemic problems. The text points to things like the breakdown of the family, financial enslavement, through things like usury and crazy high-interest debt, widespread loneliness, and even declining birth rates as the key evidence.
And as a direct answer to those problems, the text holds up the Islamic social model as the solution. The argument being made is that this model protects women by giving them a framework that's centered on family and knowledge. And according to the author, this is a framework that actually aligns with what most women naturally want. Now, to back this up, the author claims this model is really catching on, pointing to a supposed rise in conversions to Islam. And what's interesting is the text specifically alleges that the biggest group of new converts in the West is women. Women who it claims are looking for an alternative to feeling, used or objectified in modern society. And all of this builds up to the author's big climactic point. This whole ideological shift, it isn't some far-off possibility. The text says it's happening right now. And it's happening despite what it calls a massive, coordinated effort to stop it. I mean, look at this number. The document makes the absolutely massive claim that over $1 trillion have been spent on wars and propaganda. And for what? The text says it's all been for the specific goal of twisting the image of Islam, to make it look violent and backwards, just to stop people from seeing what it calls the real message. This all leads to the author's most powerful assertion, that the current conflict isn't just a conflict, it's a moment of revelation. The text argues that these events are blowing the lid off all that alleged propaganda and sparking a huge spiritual awakening. And get this, the author compares its significance to the birth of Christ itself, calling it a fundamental, corrective revolution.
So this timeline kind of puts the author's whole grand narrative into perspective, right? It charts this course from the original divine message, then moves through these major historical shifts, like Martin Luther's Reformation and the fall of the Ottoman Caliphate. And then, bam, it positions today, right now, as the critical turning point, the catalyst that's going to push humanity toward what it calls the correct path.
So in the end, the argument of last Carta Magna is really all about destiny. It's saying that all the turmoil we're seeing in the world, it's not just random chaos. Nope. The text claims it's a deliberate, divinely guided course correction, something that's pushing all of humanity away from flawed, man-made systems and back toward one single unified truth. And that's where this document, Last Carta Magna, leaves us, with this final, thought-provoking question. It's really asking us to try and see history through this very specific lens, this idea of divine software updates. And it wants us to think about, well, what is the ultimate function of that final, corrected program supposed to be?